The Substance, The Northman, Avatar, and Star Wars. These 4 films, while drastically different, are unified in one way you would never guess. They all find entertaining ways to illustrate classic storytelling archetypes, whether it's space wizards or a black market serum. This is the subject of today's episode of Studio Cinema Saturday, the show where we review films old and new, the ones you don't like, and the ones that you do. I'm your host, Jackson Hamm, and today we're talking about Star Wars, 1977, directed by George Lucas, The Hero's Journey. Star Wars is undoubtedly one of my favorite films, not only because I'm a stupid nerd, but because of everything that went into making it. One of the concepts that makes this film so timeless is a classical adventure tale, inspired by serials from the 40s and 50s. The biggest element of this is the age-old hero's journey, seen in such classic literature as the Odyssey, the Hobbit, and the Epic of Gilgamesh. Luke Skywalker lives in a mundane world of moisture farming, but is then brought into a world of rebellion, Sith, Jedi, and Empire. At the film's start, he's complaining about going to pick up power converters.
But I was going into Toshi Station to pick up some power converters.
And embracing this newfound connection of the Force by the end of it. While it may just be the start of a journey when you take the rest of the Star Wars saga into account, this film can still be viewed in a vacuum and be a perfect example of the hero's journey. Much of this is due to Lucas's inspiration by the book The Hero with a Thousand Faces by Joseph Campbell, where he read the book and used the hero's journey as a basis for the story structure of Star Wars. Campbell and Lucas would later meet, and Campbell praised Star Wars as a modern myth. This is part of why Star Wars is so celebrated today, and why we tracked films of similar narratives back to it. Avatar, 2009, directed by James Cameron. Rebirth. Maybe it's a little controversial, but I like Avatar. Perhaps that has to do with the fact that I saw it when I was an 8-year-old, but I still find it enjoyable today. Could it be guilty pleasure or nostalgia? I don't know, but I do want to talk about how this film uses the classical narrative of rebirth. This story structure is seen in such literature as A Christmas Carol, The Great Gatsby, and The Catcher in the Rye. Jake Sully is a Marine, taking his deceased brother's place on a scientific mission to the distant world of Pandora. Within him is the conflict of being a soldier and wanting something more with his life. Further conflict is added when he grows closer to the Na'vi, brewing a personal crisis within him due to his assigned mission with the RDA and his feelings toward Neytiri. Having to face those feelings head-on, Jake embraces the Na'vi and is reborn as Toruk Makto to unite the Na'vi and finally push the RDA back. Quite literally, Avatar explores the idea of rebirth with the man-made Na'vi that Jake inhabits, which gives him the ability to walk after years of being bound to a wheelchair. Furthermore, throughout the film, as Jake learns more about the Na'vi, rebirth seems to be a common belief among them, influencing the way they view the world and connect with their ancestors. This narrative ends with the protagonist having a profound shift in perspective, leading to redemption, self-discovery, and a renewed purpose. That rings like Avatar to me, and that's what James Cameron wanted. Cameron approached Avatar with the idea of a familiar story and narrative in a wholly unfamiliar world. Even if it is a little bit of Fern Gully and Dances with Wolves, it's still a great example of rebirth. And hot take, a pretty good film. The Northman, 2022, directed by Robert Eggers. Tragedy. This film is not only an unflinching look at the brutality and barbarism of 10th century Vikings, but a Shakespearean tragedy with the hallmarks of an Eggers film. Literally, as this film is based on the story of Viking Prince Amleth, which inspired Shakespeare's Hamlet. Get it? Amleth, Hamlet, anagrams, people! Much like Shakespearean tragedies, The Northman follows a protagonist, Amleth, who is consumed with one goal that leads to their undoing. Amleth had his kingdom stolen from him as a child when his uncle kills his father and kidnaps his mother. So begins the mission.
I'm gonna fetch your father! I'm gonna save your mother! I'll kill your father!
In this journey, he barely strays until a failed attempt to kill his uncle, and is saved by Olga, a woman who he had developed feelings for. When faced with literally riding off into the sunset with Olga and raising a family, as she had become pregnant, he chooses vengeance, and goes back to finish his childhood vow. In this decision, he seals his fate in pain and eventual death. This is a tragic end to Amleth, when the alternative was going off and starting a new kingdom with Olga. But his moral obligation to his childhood vow disallowed him from this, and his actions led to his demise. Quite literally, the definition of a tragic narrative is that a character of high degree leads themselves to disaster through their own actions, moral character, and even the operation of cosmic forces like fate and divine will. Who doesn't love some Shakespeare, right? I know we were all punching the air when he left Anya Taylor-Joy, but hey, at least he went out with a cool sword fight at a volcano. What other death could a guy want in the 10th century? The Substance, 2024, directed by Coralie Farja. Fatal Imprudence.
Have you ever dreamt of a better version of yourself?
In this narrative, a character makes a mistake, whether it be through carelessness, curiosity, or neglect, and another person or object is harmed or lost. One could cite Dr. Faustus as an example of fatal imprudence. Elizabeth Sparkles is an aging actress who stars in an aerobics fitness TV show, who when fired, turns to a drug that promises a more youthful and beautiful version of herself.
This is the Substance.
So enters into the picture Sue. From the instructions of the Substance, there's a 7 days on, 7 days off rule. Sue begins to abuse this rule and at first takes only a few hours extra, but eventually takes control for 3 months due to her disgust of Elizabeth, leading to disastrous effects. So Sue is causing the downfall of Elizabeth, right? Well, I thought fatal imprudence led to one's own downfall, not that of another. Oh, you're right, but this film is too. The representative of the Substance states to both Elizabeth and Sue that they are not separate, but one. The constant ignorance and denial of this fact leads to the eventual horror of Monstro Elizasu.
Don't whisper! Monster! Stupid!
Which dies horribly and pitifully. The Substance is deeper than any old fatal imprudence narrative, however. This film sets our character on their path with problems that plague the very industry of filmmaking itself. Beauty standards, aging, and self-image. We, the audience, have seen actors, actresses, models, and many more in the spotlight age before our very eyes. Over the years, though, we have seen them look better and better as they get older due to the sheer competitive nature of the industry. How can one compete with a 25-year-old lead when they're edging 60? This goes triple for women in the industry, who for years have been shuffled in front of our eyes, all for the new Hollywood hotness. While most fatal imprudences come from a place of greed, arrogance, or neglect, in this film, it comes from a much more human place. Elizabeth had aged, and the people who held her livelihood had built her up on the vanity of looks, ripped it all away from her, and left her heightened self-image at rock bottom. So of course, she turns to the Substance to take it all back. All of the films I've mentioned take a classic narrative structure and use it in a way only they ever could in the time released. Star Wars is a 70s film, experimental with a touch of counterculture undertones. Avatar is a marvel of technology and set up the 2010s to be dominated by big-budget films. The Northman is a full-circle moment, taking the inspiration for a Renaissance play and putting it in the spotlight with all its bloody glory. The Substance is a biting indictment of beauty standards for the film industry itself, while Star Wars and Avatar have made their impact. The Northman and the Substance are yet to be fully appreciated. Now, all you cinephiles appreciate it. I know, you can stop yelling at me in the comments. The latter films deserve the same amount of recognition as the former films, though. They deserve the same amount of discourse, recognition, and praise from the general audiences that they received from industry peers and cinephiles alike. Now, as we come to my final point, I know films like Avatar and Star Wars have kind of led to the franchise fatigue in modern cinema. The environment that causes films like The Northman and The Substance to only earn back around the same amount as their initial budget. At the end of the day, this last statement goes for every film I discussed in this video and comes straight from my heart. We need these films. That brings us to a close of this episode of Studio Cinema Saturday. There's plenty of other episodes of Studio Cinema Saturday you can watch and enjoy. There's also our sister show, Television Tuesday, where we talk TV on a Tuesday and tell you all about it. And there's our new show, Buying a Film Its First Drink, where a film turns 21 and we buy it a drink. where we've discussed such films as Hulk 2003 or Lord of the Rings, The Return of the King. And it's a new year, so we're going to be talking new films, buying them a drink. While I've got you, be sure to like this video, subscribe, and in the comments below, let us know what films you notice also have a classical narrative, and what recent releases have gone underappreciated. Oh, and one last thing, thanks for watching. That song's dead.